And today we're going to talk about that, actually. Isn't that funny? I'm not kicking the basket, I'm moving it gracefully with my foot. We're going to talk about sin today. Last week I lured you in to talk about forgiveness, and the title of the talk was Giving Forward. And today the talk is entitled Archery 101. And you get to hear, if you haven't already, our interpretation of this thing called sin. Now, first of all, I'm going to open up with a very relieving comment here. Let's see. I'm going to just remember my alphabet. One moment. Okay. Do we believe that man is a sinner? The word sin comes from an ancient Greek term. When an archer missed his target with his arrow, he sinned. Sin means to miss the mark or to make a mistake. There is no sin but a mistake, and no punishment but a consequence. The law of cause and effect always brings with it the consequences of the action or mistake. God does not punish sin. As we correct our mistakes, we forgive our own sins. God does not sit in judgment. God is a God of love, not anger, judgment, or punishment. God allows us to answer for our own mistakes or sins to the immutable law of cause and effect. There is no good or bad, only consequences. Yeah. So, here we go. I'm going to sip some water already. So, we're welcoming a new month, and the October theme is One with All. Anybody remember that terrible riddle about the Zen master ordering a hot dog, which doesn't really make much sense, but let's say the Zen master orders a tofu pup. Okay. And what does he say? Make me one with everything. Okay, there you go. There's that one.
Okay.
And the truth of the matter is that we already are, of course. And maybe that would be the kind of joke that a Zen master would make. You know, it's a koan because we already are one with everything, and we can't be made one with everything. However, our awakening to that truth is the crux, the key to our own healing. It is something that we must know, that we are whole in order to feel whole, in order to be whole, in order to be well, in order to recognize that life is already holy for us, in us. So, in this week's newsletter, I borrowed something from the internet and forgot to see who wrote it, so thank you. I quoted an online teaching on sin from the Jewish perspective. The Hebrew word for sin is chet, which literally means missing the mark. According to Jewish beliefs, a person sins when he or she goes astray. A sin could be actively doing something wrong, or it could be not doing something, and I inserted the word right for context. Another commentary on the Greek origin says that the word hamartia, it's not spelled like my name, and besides, it's the opposite of me. Maybe what I am is right on the mark. Maybe I'm bullseye, right? Okay. So Hamartia, hamartia, for failure or error. It also implies missing out on the prize. The bigger part of this teaching is that when you miss the mark, you don't get the prize. You don't get the goodies. You don't get the great outcome you were hoping for. But the thing about this archery metaphor is that in it there's an opportunity to get better. Now there are some, again, in my internet search, in the Christian community who feel like this is just an excuse to be lazy, to be immoral, to be irresponsible, and say, oh well, so I missed the mark, big deal. Well, there is no need to worry about a person ever escaping the consequences of his or her thoughts. and feelings and words and deeds, it is impossible. Our consequences are inescapable. I think that Mom taught me this, and I'm not sure. But somehow I picked up this phrase, the universe polices itself. Which means that I don't need to busy myself running around making sure that everybody gets their just desserts. They're already gotten. And Spirit, Creator, the Absolute, the All that is, the law of cause and effect, whatever you choose to call it, perfectly responds. There's Newton's third law that says that for every action there is a perfect and opposite reaction. And further exploration into that says it's mutual. To the degree that my sitting on the chair impresses upon the chair, there's something about it that presses back. And now I did a quick study and thought maybe I shouldn't talk about that. And maybe I could ask one of you to talk about the science of what we push out, it comes back equally. In any case, there is something that is perfectly responsive to everything we think and feel and say and do. And it results in our consequences, the sequence of events which are set in motion with it as a result of it. And we call those effects, the law of cause and effect. We call those results, we call those outcomes, we call those good days and bad days. We call those our circumstances, we call those our lives. And we can have other consequences that we like better. By what? By learning how to adjust what we put into it to begin with. So we come back to this concept of archery and think, well, gosh, that is pretty handy. Not that I think that I did take an archery class in high school gym. And I was probably too busy thinking about other things to remember much about it. And I do know, just from speculation, that this concept of aim, this concept of having your bow properly strung, this concept of having arrows at the ready in your quiver, this concept of understanding the tension that is necessary, the concept of aim, the concept of knowing when to let go. Well, see, I remembered a few things. All of those are little nuances in adjusting our aim and adjusting the outcome that we end up with. So Archery 101 is actually a great example of how we can improve our lives, our circumstances, our effects, our outcomes, our use of the law of cause and effect by first of all knowing that we're doing it at all. As a matter of fact, it's happening all the time, whether you knew it or not. So congratulations, now you know, and now you can do it consciously, with intention and on purpose. And you can learn how. So we can look at this archery concept and say, oh, I would rather that my life be a bullseye kind of life. I'd like to hit my targets. What are those targets? The life that's calling me. The life that I know is possible. The life despite all current experiences, perhaps, I know is mine. And maybe I have said things that my family and my friends don't understand or agree with or believe. Maybe some people think I'm just off my rocker. And yet I cannot stop dreaming that dream and aiming for that thing, and knowing in my gut that it's possible, and that just like any animal, any living creature moves instinctively in a certain direction at a certain time without knowing why, there are things that we're aiming for like that. So we have that, and then we say, well, gosh, but I'm just a beginner. And I haven't practiced very much, and this whole concept is new to me. I really want a bullseye, but I don't know the first thing about how to get one. We go back to the simple idea that in order to get our bullseye, to have the experience that we're targeting, The one that our gut, that our intuition, that our instinct is telling us to aim for, that is telling us is possible despite what everything else looks like and what everyone else may be saying, involves understanding how to make our mark. Understanding how to make our mark. And it's actually a really simple thing. You've heard the phrase, what goes around comes around. It's really that simple. What we put in to this perfectly, exactly, constantly present and active, creative medium, law of cause and effect, gives back to us perfectly and exactly according to that. Now, when I put out, I don't get back whatever Frida's been vibrating, except for when we're really on the same page, the three of us, Frida and Betty Ann and I, we made a date and went and did some things together the other morning that were just wonderful. We made a choice, we made a plan, we went and did it, and it was awesome. But I don't get somebody else's return, somebody else's effect. If you like the word karma, that's fine. It equates with the law of cause and effect. And by the way, when you change your aim, you get a different result. And you are no longer paying or getting the return from that other pattern. You've moved on. Another way to look at that is that if you move and you fill out a change of address in consciousness, you no longer get the return from the previous mindset unless you go back to it. And you get to choose, right? You don't have to. Ernest Holmes says a couple things that I just love. One of them that's very encouraging is that there is no process of healing. The key word there is of. Healing doesn't have to be a process. It doesn't, we I myself included, we overuse this word journey, which implies a really long trip, right? It could be just a short walk. It could be the blink of an eye if we're ready to handle that level of transformation. Although that can really rock your world and upset a few apple carts. There's no process of healing. There's actually only a process in healing. And the length of it, the time that it takes, and the effort involved is absolutely, precisely, directly corresponding to how long you think it needs to take. And what you believe you need to do before you can have that thing that you desire. So if you walk up to your metaphorical bullseye, right? And you've got your bow and arrows in your quiver, right? And you're like, okay, I do this, I'm going to work on this. I can do it. And yet something says, it's going to be difficult. It's going to take a lot of time. I may not be able to find a class. I may not be able to find a good teacher. I may not be able to find someone who gets me, who could explain it. I may not be find anyone to practice with, or I can't even afford a bow and arrow, never mind a class. Guess what? You can change all of that. You can change all of that. You can go out and get a sapling and find a piece of string and get another stick and tie it all together and practice aiming at a rock. You can do that. It does not have to be hard. So remember that whether it's healing or achieving your bullseye, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be hard, and it doesn't have to take a long time. The other thing that Ernest Holmes says that I absolutely love is that love points the way. And law makes the way possible. So love, which is in you, and you know it is, it made you out of itself, and it's in there, believe me, knows how to aim perfectly. It will always show you the way. How will you know? When you're pointed in the right direction, your heart will open up, and you'll just say, yes, you'll feel that yes. And when you're pointed in some other direction, it's not a bullseye for you. You'll get the opposite. Love will point the way. So there's your aim. All taken care of. It's always within you and you can trust it. Law makes the way possible. That means that you don't need to use your head, the sweat of your brow, and your muscles, and your back, and whatever else to accomplish this stuff by yourself. It's already built in to the automatic responsiveness of the universe, which is always saying yes to whatever you put into it. Now, I will tell you, I'm one of those people who has believed that I have had habits of thinking and habits of feeling, following thought, and belief being built accordingly, and words that just fall out of my mouth that give voice to those habitual thoughts and feelings and beliefs, and actions I've even taken before I realized what I was up to, and consequences that I've experienced that are not in alignment with the greatest truth that is available for me and is right here within me. And that's where last week's topic comes in really handy, because we can forgive and try again. When you're learning a sport, like archery, for example, when you're learning to walk, my goodness sakes, what do? You fall down, sometimes you laugh, you might cry, but somebody says, there, it'll be all right, and you get up and try again. Just like a baby learns to walk, there is a determination there. And if you choose to commit yourself to the discipline of learning an art, a craft, a sport, something, you do the same thing. Be okay with messing up at first. Be okay with not getting it all right at first. Because the progression from either off the target or way over here on the side to the bullseye is something that grows us. The progression from not getting it to getting it is where we go from novice to amateur to semi-pro to pro to master. And we have the opportunity in practicing this relationship between what we think and feel and say and do and experience and the meaning that we give it and the memory that we file it as and the expectancy that we live in. We have an opportunity every day to rewrite that if we don't like our outcomes. And we go from being a novice to being a master. And all along the way, every time I have one of those magnets on my refrigerator, I have many. This says fall down 7 times, get up 8. Just always get up one more time, then we fall down. Do you notice that there is a relaxed nature, not just of forgiveness, but acceptance? There isn't any condemnation to forgive. There's just acceptance. That this is what it means to grow. This is what it means to be here, evolving. Isn't that wonderful? So when we think of sin, we say, no problem. We're missing the mark. And we will beautifully and perfectly experience the consequences of whatever we have set into motion. And we can forgive ourselves and try again when we don't like the outcome and have a different experience. If another person has done something unsavory, we can say they are either expressing love or crying out for love. And we can express compassion for that. That's not condoning what they did. You might choose not to be in that person's proximity and their sphere. But you can say, they just don't know yet. And be compassionate rather than condemning. I think I learned this on a phone call with our other sister about a week ago. The difference between guilt and shame is this. Guilt is my conscience saying, uh-oh, I did a bad thing. And when I say bad, I use the word in quotes. It's a colloquialism. I did something that wasn't great. That's good. That's my navigation system telling me adjust, adjust, adjust. And I can do that. However, if I feel shame, what I'm saying is that I am bad. And that can't be corrected. So, if we muck up, if we mess up, if we don't get it quite right the first time, can we express some compassion for ourselves and one another? How about empathy? The difference between empathy and sympathy. Now, I can't give it to you exactly. Empathy says, that must really hurt. That must be really difficult. That must be really hard for you. But it doesn't say, oh, you poor dear, and just dive into the mud or the abyss with another person. Empathy is empowering. Empathy says, I understand this must be difficult. You see how the turning point away from our reaction and our being locked into what's not working and being free to discover the gifts in our misses, in our mistakes, is contingent upon our willingness to be empathetic for ourselves and one another, to be compassionate and accepting. And if we feel a little guilt, great. That's just an autopilot alarm going off saying, you're off course. Might as well correct now while it's minor and it hasn't shown up in a big way. We don't have to feel ashamed. We don't have to condemn ourselves or anyone else. How could we possibly get better at putting something more favorable, of a higher ideal, into this creative process, into this medium, if we were focusing on what we feel bad about? We can't. The thing that we can observe with any world religion, especially something that's been around for a very, 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 very long time, and especially something that has a figurehead rather than just a teaching and a doctrine, is that it's possible that it has been taken too literally. It's possible that it has created a culture of fundamentalism and duality. And there are good and bad and right and wrong, and all we need to do is gather up all the bads and the wrongs and get rid of them, and then we'll be fine. And that doesn't work. But there is a higher interpretation of every teaching, no matter what the path is. I know Frida and I were talking about that movie. Is it called The Voice or One Voice? One Voice. That people, when they experience their belief system, whatever it is, at the level of mysticism, all seeming differences disappear. So that's what we do here, by the way. We just move to this place, higher and higher and higher, to where there is no good or bad, or right or wrong. It all simply is. And when and as we put good ideas in there, laser focused, aimed at our highest ideals, what we get is a bullseye. What we get is a bullseye. We know it in our minds instantly. We recognize it in our hearts. It comes out in our words. It comes out in our deeds. It comes out as our bodies and the bodies of our affairs. It comes out as our experiences. It becomes our new beliefs, our new memories, our new expectancies. It becomes our world. So I invite you to just take in this idea that sin is not about punishment or reward. It is simply the recognition that sometimes we miss the mark, and we will be beautifully redirected by whatever happens as a result of that. And there is no limit on how many tries we get. We'll never be disqualified. We're here to grow together. So the light in me recognizes and honors the light in